Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is Play It Again, Uncle Sam. A little louder for the people in the back, I guess. And no secret, I was writing about the inauguration, the incoming administration, round two, and the chaos and all of the madness that is already ensuing in the first, 4 or 5 days, however you want to look at it here in the United States, and in California, where we were already dealing with a lot of heartbreak and chaos and grief and loss from the fires. So it really has felt like the longest month of my life out here. And I think for everyone in Los Angeles, it's just been a very exhausting, painful, heartbreaking time, but also there has been a lot of beauty. The community is organizing and showing up and doing everything imaginable to try to support people who have lost their homes and all of their belongings, who are trying to figure out where they're going, where they're staying. And that has been incredibly reassuring. Of all the things that have sort of, made me have hope, that has been the biggest by far, because you can look around and feel incredibly hopeless and scared, and that's legitimate. But there are people who care, who want things to be better than this, who are going to show up in a disaster, and I can see that out here. So there's a lot of things that are disasters are always, that's where you're going to see the character of the people around you and of your community. And if anybody ever needed any evidence of what people are really like out here in Los Angeles, it's on full display. And so, I think we should all sort of take heart in that, and also, think about how we can get through this time. And that's what I was writing about too. And I did not watch the inauguration on Monday. I've made no secret of how I feel, and I know that we don't all agree. And I want to talk a lot about that today. And that's what I was writing about as well in the essay. I feel so strongly that a big part of what has happened here in our country, but also globally, there's just such a tilt toward authoritarianism. And aside from that, there's just this great divide here where people are just screaming at each other on the internet. And, in a lot of ways, the internet can be amazing. We get to connect with people we might never have met otherwise. There are all these tools so that we can be in conversation, but there are also algorithms and echo chambers, and it's all intentional. You're being fed very carefully more of what you're clicking on. And the algorithm is learning who you are, what you like. And, there's a whole thing going on here underneath all the stuff that we use these tools, we're on the phones, we've got these platforms that we use, and people are building their businesses, or they're connecting with their high school friends, or whatever it is. It's like there's also advertising going on, as we all know, right? And how many of you have had a conversation with someone in your house and then suddenly maybe you're like, look, I don't know, you're talking about paint colors and then suddenly you're getting like advertisements for Sherwin-Williams or whatever on your phone. It's like if you've got Siri on, your phone's listening to you. So there's a lot going on here, and that's what I was writing about too. I didn't watch on Monday. I am kind of at my max. I was writing about 9/11 both last week and this week because the fires out here, of all the things that it's reminiscent of, really, that I've experienced in my lifetime, that's the one. And I realized that I was having some of that kind of PTSD. We've had, thankfully, a lot less loss of life than we had in 9/11 out here. But just the shock of it, I think, and the destruction, the grief, the days, just that sort of days after, DAYS, days after, days, DAZE. It's just people kind of in that state of looking at something and really having a hard time understanding, even while they're staring at it, what they're seeing. Just all of it, hugging people who are trying to process what has just happened, having empathy, and I did let the week before last, I was writing about, the part that's doing me in. I was writing about the heartless comments on the internet, and I did let that really, I think because of the kind of PTSD and really not sleeping and trying to process what was going on, and then also not being sure if we were going to have to evacuate or not, just all of that stuff. Those comments were so painful. It just really took the very last little bit of bounciness, in the nervous system, and just that was it. I was like, okay, well, there goes that. And once I had a few nights of more sleep, I just realized, like, okay, that's not something normally I think I would be prone to, or I'm usually pretty good at not at directing my attention. And that's a big part of the yoga practice too, is figuring out, okay, where am I putting my attention? That idea of where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So I can focus on these awful heartless comments, or I can focus on all the people who are showing up. I can decide what I'm going to put the importance on here. But when you're when your nerves are frayed and you are just on your last little bit of whatever's in the tank, it's hard. And when you see members in your community being attacked and you are with them and you can see how much they're hurting, it's really hard, not to step into the fray and defend people. And I don't have any regret. It's just, we're not going to survive if we are spending our time and energy, fending off heartless comments on the internet. That's just not going to work. And it's not useful. There are useful ways that we can expend our energy, and there are ways where we're just going to burn ourselves out. So that's what I was writing about this week. I've had better sleep. It hasn't been great, but it's been better. There are some, small fires that break out here and there, and the alerts go off, and it's a little bit we're not totally, I wouldn't say we're in a great place, but it's definitely better. There are no, I'm certainly not worried about evacuation or anything like that at this point. I'm concerned about how can I help the people in my community have the things that they need. I have been doing things, and that's what I did on Monday. I didn't want to watch the inauguration. I didn't want to be on social media. I didn't want to partake in that. There's nothing good was going to come of that for me, for my nervous system. It's not going to change anything. And I don't need to immerse myself in real time in that kind of feeling. There's nothing productive. So I did not do that. I was not on social media. I was on Substack, where I have my essays, my personal essays that I write every week, and where I put the podcast out and all of that. And I follow a lot of writers there who are like-minded. And I think all of us just sort of holding our heads a little bit in sadness and feeling really astounded that so many people signed up for this again. For a variety of reasons, which I think are becoming clear every day. Every day there are more executive orders and things happening, which, this is why the people who feel the way I do did not want this, because it makes a lot of people unsafe. And even people who voted for this are, I think in time, if they aren't already, not going to be happy about what is going to happen here. So, that's kind of on Monday. I was did a little bit of my own writing, responded to some comments under my essay from last week, left some comments for, people who had written things that made the day a little less devastating, answered emails, just kind of was having a bit of a quieter day. And then also organized, I'm doing a clothing drive. So trying to figure out who needs what. And where we're at now is most people, there's been such an outpouring of that kind of support that most people who are running these clothing drives are okay, please, we're good on donations. Now it's more about specific requests. So I am doing that kind of outreach, people who, does anybody have size 12 jeans anywhere? That kind of thing. And then picking that up and dropping it off to specific places. And the next phase of this is going to be people settling into new places and needing household items. It's going to be a long haul out here. And that to me feels like a good use of my time and energy, is to try to make sure that people in my community feel supported, and to the extent that I can, just getting people the things that they need. I've been volunteering with this incredible organization. I'm actually running a fundraiser for them, Baby to Baby. And they're amazing. You can look them up. They work with over 450 different organizations across Los Angeles, and they're always supporting families in need. So when there is a disaster like what we just experienced, they're already set up for it. They have a network ready to go, and they have already delivered more than 3 million disaster relief bags to displaced families across Los Angeles. And they're specific too. So they're not sort of guessing what families need. They're listening to the organizations that are, working with these families, different shelters, different, Airbnb teamed up with LA 211 and gave people free places to stay for a week. And then were also shelters set up, and there were places where you could go and get meals. And so there's just a lot of communication going on. And some families needed diapers and wipes and things and other families had older kids and needed activities for an older child while they're filling out insurance claim forms. And, so just, they're really responsive in that way and specific. And so, I was so impressed. Their warehouse is huge. It's organized. When you go down there, it's it's a 2-hour shift, and you work. You're working and sweating and, getting it done, filling these bags. And I ended up working with these 3 other women, and it was just it feels really good to help, to go and do something tangible and know that this bag that you're filling with a soft blanket and an adorable teddy bear and this, the diapers and the wipes and the cream and it's like somebody's going to open that on the other end and handwritten note, and feel like, okay, there are people who care and who are trying to help me right now. And also, if you're somebody like I am not someone, I do not like asking for help. It's like, I am that person. I'd rather drown than ask for help. And that's something I've had to like work on. I'm still not great at it, but I'm better at it than I used to be. So I can put myself in that position. I can imagine what it feels like to be that humbled. Like, you don't have a choice. You need help in a moment like that, and so my heart really, like, it just goes out to people. And the only thing that makes me feel better is trying to help, and that's the thing about, like, not just looking for the helpers, which is always going to make us feel better, right? Knowing like, oh, look, if you look around, you're going to see how many people are trying to make the world better. But also to try to be a helper is the thing that's going to make you feel the best, because you are participating in that like good energy of not just, I want the world to be better, but I'm like doing something with my time and energy to, try to make that happen. And so I was doing that on Monday, and then I made a plan to have lunch with one of my closest friends who I've known, went to high school and college together. She lives out here, and my daughter, who is off school for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so that's kind of how it was going. And then a friend of mine sent me this meditation that I think this person thought I was going to like, and I really did not like it. I was writing about it. It was like actually kind of funny because it actually enraged me. And it enraged me because it was a straight, white, upwardly mobile guy I happen to know, who had released this meditation on Monday. And it was very much like, and I'm not giving any identifying details, but it was very much like, this is a really good time to practice non-attachment. And it was geared toward women. And it was just like, and then there was also at the end this thing about, if you're in Los Angeles, there's a coupon code for essential oils if you're struggling to breathe. I mean, my brain kind of like exploded. So, and it exploded because it's like, first of all, there was also a thing of like, if you liked this meditation, you can get my, course of 30 meditations for $20. I don't even know. It just was like, this is not the moment for so many things. Like, first of all, are we really going to try to make money off of people who are suffering right now? Essential oils, with the air quality out here and what is happening, put a mask on your face. Like, if you are in an area, there's so much conversation going on. Like, the Clean Air Coalition gave a 2.5-hour presentation based on all this research they've done post 9/11. People who were living in the area, told that it was like safe to come back, safe to be living right around the towers there. And a lot of those people who were like cleaning up mesothelium, like there's a lot of stuff that it's really painful when you're in a city and something like this happens. I think we have to logically assume that probably not all the information is going to come out, because what are these officials supposed to do? Are they supposed to say, yeah, it's not safe, you should leave? I mean, I don't know. You've got to kind of also use a little bit of common sense and assume that if things near you have just burned that are carcinogenic, there's probably stuff in the air that's not good for you to breathe in, right? You got to also use your own critical thinking skills and, do what feels right for you. And it's not just, there's so many different aspects to this tragedy, and and so if you have mattresses burning and cars burning and buildings burning and insulation burning, yeah, that's not going to be great. And there are volatile organic compounds in the smoke, in the air. And so, depending on where you are and how close you are to the fires, you want to be looking at not the air quality index on your phone, because it's not going to be accurate, and not whether the sky is blue, because it probably will be, especially if you're near the ocean. But like, is there visible ash? That's, not a good sign, and certainly you don't want to be breathing that in. And also the smoke outlook in your area. And there are websites for that, which I shared. And it's hard because I think everybody is like masked out. Nobody, people don't want to, I understand we all lived through a pandemic, and people don't want to put a mask on. I get it, but you probably also don't want lung cancer or mesothelioma. Like there are things that you have to like weigh and figure out. So there's I think it's airnow.gov is a good resource for the smoke outlook, just to see. And it'll show you, like, it'll be green if things are good where you are, yellow if not. And there's also we have the Santa Ana wind. So if you've just had this massive wildfire and then you have winds blowing the smoke in your direction, you probably want to put a mask on if you're outside. Then there's like the water, like what's happening in the water and is that safe? And so there's a lot of stuff to try to figure out. And what doesn't help is people like screaming. That does not help. It's like you just gotta try to figure out what do we do, and what makes sense, to me based on what I'm reading and what I'm understanding. What do I do? What feels right? And so that's what everyone is doing out here in the midst of trying to help and trying to solve problems. And so, yeah, a coupon code for essential oils right now is enraging. It's like, that's not it. And also what I think really bothered me on another level is what is happening right now and what has just happened as far as like this new administration. Straight, white, upwardly mobile men are by and large as safe now as they were, prior to Monday. And for pretty much everyone else, that's not the case. And so my feeling is, if you're gonna like put out any sort of practice about like non-attachment or meditation, like maybe let someone who's in one of these marginalized groups do that just for now. I'm not canceling straight, white, upwardly mobile men. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying maybe you could just not have to, step into the space day one with something you're selling. Like maybe let somebody else, who's actually scared right now about what this means for them, for their safety, for their child, for their, sister or daughter. Like, I don't know, maybe let them figure out when the right moment is for a conversation about non-attachment. Maybe you're not the person to really speak to that right now. And, there is this thing that I think it is very hard for, and there are really good men out there, and I appreciate them, and I mean that. I am not someone who, I have a son. I love men. I love good men, but I do think it's very hard to understand what it is like to live in a body where you just know from your life and from living every day that you're not safe, that you have to think about things like, is it dark? Is there somebody following me on the street right now? Am I in a parking lot, like walking to my building? And should I get back in my car and lock the door? Do I need to call someone? Like, it's a constant. And I think if you haven't lived it, it's really just like anything else, that anyone else is living that's a constant that you haven't. You don't have that in your body. It's not your lived experience, and there are things I haven't lived that I will never fully be able to understand. So we need to respect each other's, we need to understand where we are in the hierarchy of experiences in this life, and maybe not step into somebody else's realm, especially on a day where they're feeling incredibly vulnerable. Like, maybe that's not the moment, And so, yeah, it was not the right, it was not the right thing to send me in that moment. But I did think it was sort of also funny on a certain level that a meditation could, make me angry. I thought that was kind of hilarious. And it made me think about that topic that I was just talking about, this idea of what it is like to have someone, come into office for the second time who speaks about women in such a degrading way, who talks about grabbing women, by the pussy, like whatever, we've all heard it. So it's, why can't I say it? He says it, right? This is what we have. This is what we did again. And what that feels like for people like me who have unfortunately had so many experiences with men like that is that it doesn't matter. That the people who said, we're going to vote for him again, are like, yeah, I don't care about that. I don't care that you've had all those experiences. That does not matter to me. I'm voting for this again anyway. It's really, it really does make you feel like you're not important. You don't matter. Your feelings don't matter. Your experiences don't matter. You're not, you're just, it doesn't matter what you've shared or what you've said. And that the message that we're giving to women, girls, children, like vulnerable, the vulnerable people in our community, is that we're going to put people like this, we're going to give them the highest positions in the land. It doesn't matter if a man comes out and says, I'll just grab women I'll just do whatever I want to women. I don't care. We're not going to, that's not disqualifying. The message that we're sending to the most vulnerable people in our society is that, like, you're not, we're okay with that, apparently. And to the boys in our society, we're telling them, yeah, that's going to be okay. You can do and say things like that, and it's not going to hurt you. And not just that guy, but then all these other people he's nominated, Pete Hegseth. It's tough. And that's why I don't want to be hearing from an upwardly mobile, white, straight dude right now telling me to practice non-attachment. Like, please just give us, you can just be quiet for a minute. Let us have our feelings. Let us process some stuff, and we'll figure out when we're ready to have the non-attachment conversation. I've been practicing for over 30 years. Like, there are plenty of us in these communities, who can, you know what I mean? Like, let us figure that stuff out when we want to. And you can just support in other ways. Like, maybe you could be having a conversation with your upwardly mobile, straight, white male friends about rape culture and consent. That would be a really helpful thing you could do, if you want to help. That would be something helpful you could do. I think you're kind of late to that conversation. And I know it's hard. Like, I've talked to some of my like male friends who are really good guys, and there is a lot of shame too in it. And then that is never my like, the last thing that I want to do is shame the good dudes, out there. Because I understand if you are on the street and there is like, and this is something I think so many girls and women can relate to. You walk by like a construction site or and guys are yelling the most just like disgusting things. And you're like a teenager. That kind of stuff starts when you're like 12, 13, 14, 15, and it doesn't stop. It just continues on. And what happens is you're walking, especially in New York. I grew up in New York City, right? So you're walking on the street and these like really just gross, like things are being yelled. Everyone can hear. You're mortified, right? You're like, and maybe a few women you'll make eye contact and they'll look at you sympathetically. The men walk by like they are not hearing it. It's like it's not happening. And so the message that you're getting is this is somehow accepted or it's normalized. We're going to pretend it isn't happening. There's a little vibe of it's somehow your fault for existing with breasts. There's no, and maybe other women will give you a little bit of like sympathy or empathy or solidarity. And then there will be some women who won't, or who will give you a, kind of like judgy look. It's a lot to process and try to like figure out. So those messages are happening all the time. And then you go to school and you may be tasked with keeping the boy next to you focused. You may see that like the boys at school can be loud and rowdy and you're supposed to be quiet. It's a constant stream of messaging that you are growing up with, and it doesn't end. And so it all that stuff started to, kind of like, I was thinking about things and I was writing the essay that I ended up publishing this week. And I was thinking about this, my private client. I have one private client out here and I adore him. He's a wonderful guy. I was writing about how I haven't had a private client in a really long time because I've gotten pickier and pickier about that over the years. And my whole work, like the bulk of what I do with my time has really changed, especially in the last like 6 years. For many, many, many years, the bulk of what I did was teaching public classes. I was teaching public yoga classes in New York and LA. I moved to Los Angeles in 2001. And in 2009, I opened my own yoga studio in downtown Santa Monica. And I was just teaching a full schedule of classes, and I was writing at night. I was writing until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning very often. I was doing the single mom thing for many years and got a book deal, put out a book in 2016, another book right before that I had self-published, and then I did a book with a publisher in 2016. And in 2018, I closed the brick and mortar yoga studio that I had in Santa Monica after 9 years of having the doors open, and moved everything online. What had happened was in 2009, when we opened the local studio, we also started streaming classes online. We were one of the first yoga studios to do that, one of the first 3. And so I realized I was not going to, I had been in business with my ex-husband and he decided like he was going to go and do his own thing and I was going to take over the business. And I just realized like there's no way that I can run a local, yoga studio, run the website, and have the two kids. Like there's just no way I can do all that. So I closed the local studio. At the time, there were just so many local studios in Santa Monica, and I devoted all of my time to the site and to writing and obviously to my kids first. And so that's how it was for a really long time, and that's how it's been. And I stopped teaching public classes and really just was teaching for the site and didn't have any private clients unless they were online. I would like work with people like that and continued, made it easier to write during the day as well when my kids were at school. So just that's how it's kind of been. And the reason is like when I first, aside from the fact that I want to be, it's beautiful for me. I now have one public class a week on Sundays that I love. I love going and being in the room with people, and I get to see people that I've known for like 20 years. I've been out here so long that like I have a lot of people that will show up, and some of them are coming every week and some of them I haven't seen for, forever. It's great. And I lead yoga retreats every year, usually one international retreat every year and one like closer to home. And I get to see people that way, and I love that. I've had like wanderlust since the pandemic, and for a lot of reasons, I just want to see this beautiful world. And I also do love the ability to share this practice that has really helped me in my life. With people that I might not get to meet otherwise, so this is the good part of the internet. And I have clients that I work with one-on-one that way. And I'm able to carve out the time for the writing. It's like, it works out really well that way. When I first moved to Los Angeles, it wasn't like that. I had to hit the ground running and take everything. I was like all over town on the 10 constantly, teaching everywhere, teaching, at every studio, gym, anywhere that, wanted, I was saying yes. And anytime anybody gave me a private client, I was like, yes, because you're going to make more money in a one-on-one situation than you are in a group class. But what would happen is a lot of the time you find yourself in like a, strange, uncomfortable situation. And I had a client, for example, where I would go and his assistant would greet me at the door and bring me to his study. And I wrote about this in my last book, actually. And I would go and I would, she'd bring me to the study. The place was beautiful. The house was, it was incredible. But I would never know how long I'd be waiting. Sometimes he'd come in after a few minutes, and sometimes I'd be waiting like 45 minutes, and he'd walk in and tell me like Oliver Stone had called sorry. Or we'd start like the practice, and then halfway through his assistant would come in and say like, whatever, so-and-so was on the phone. And he'd say, I'm sorry, I've got to take it. And he'd go, and then he'd come back like 20 minutes later and, want to keep going, but he wouldn't be warm anymore. So I'd have to get him like warm again and then and I did not, at the time, I was not assertive enough to say, my time is valuable too. Like, I can't be here 3 hours. It's like the money is good if I'm here for the hour we've agreed to, but if I'm here half the day, it's not good anymore, and like, I can't do this. And also I can't be here for 3 hours, like I can be here for an hour and then I'm going to go. I didn't have that yet. I was still like finding my footing with that kind of thing. And even now, I just wouldn't want to be in that position. It's just not, I just like, I don't want to even have to be in that. It's just not fun. I just don't want to be in that. It's, not for me. And that was a benign situation. I also, there was, and I wrote about this, but I got a phone call one day from this woman who her boss had found my website online. I had a very simple website at the time, just like a one page, and she said, he wanted me to call to schedule a private yoga session with you. This is the address. Can you come at this time on this day? I'll be there to greet you. And I said, yeah, great. Whatever. She gives me all the instructions. I go to the building. I follow her instructions for parking. I go up the elevator. The elevator opens, and it opens. He's got the whole top floor is his apartment. And there's just, views everywhere. It's incredible. And I'm following her, down hallways and whatever, through doorways. And I am now suddenly alarmed because she leads me into his bedroom, and it's wall to wall carpeting. And there are giant framed black and white photos of a vagina on every wall, close up shots. And he's standing at the foot of his unmade bed, on a yoga mat, and watching me take this in. And she leaves instantly. It's not about the pictures. They were artistic, but huge. I mean, really wall size, photographs. It's that this is not an appropriate place to do business, right? Your bedroom is not, with your unmade bed, is not an appropriate place for business. And so I said to him, can we go somewhere with not any room that doesn't have carpeting, because this is not going to be good for your balance? And he said, no, I'm happy here. I want to do it here. I do yoga here a lot. So, I start teaching him this private, and with 15 minutes into the session, he falls out of triangle pose and topples on top of me on his bed. So I'm now trapped underneath him on his bed. And, I've had enough experiences like this in my life where I'm instantly in fight or flight, trying to get him off of me, and also trying to act like I'm not scared. Like I'm believing this was an accident, even though I know it wasn't an accident. And he is not getting off of me. He's leaving all of his weight on top of me, and basically lifts himself up about 3 inches to look at me, panicking. He's getting off on it. And then he rolled off of me, laughing. I was oh, sorry. And I just tore out of there. I was so angry, and angry at myself too, because everything in my body had told me to leave when I walked into that room, and he wouldn't move to a different room. Everything in my body was this is not good. We should just let's just get out of here. But I talked myself out of it. I was well, hopefully it'll be okay. She's in the other room. Hopefully I know the guy's name. I know where he lives. I know who he is. And hopefully it'll he's not going to do anything this stupid with someone in the house. But the truth is he very well might have, I don't know. He very well might have. Guys like that, cruelty is the whole thing. Cruelty is the point, Watching you be terrified is the point. And guys like that they're everywhere. I'm sorry to say, they're everywhere. And I used to think it's because I grew up in New York City, and I was a latchkey kid. It was the 70s and 80s. And my parents split when I was 4. And from the time I was 8, I was navigating around the city alone a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. It was just a necessity. My mom was a single mom until I was 8. She married my stepdad then. But, they were working, and I was alone. And this was not unusual. My friends, a lot of us, we would take the public bus. School wasn't that far away, so you would get off the bus and you would walk the rest of the way. After school, I would walk home. It's just, this was very common. I packed my own lunch when I was in third grade. It's unheard of now, but that's how it was then. And a lot of things happened. And that's what I used to chalk it up to, is like, that's why. But as I have gotten older and I've been writing and I've been connecting with people, it's everywhere. It's all over. It's not just New York City. It's wherever, I am sorry to say, it's wherever men exist. And it's not all men, but it's always men. It's not all men, but whenever there are going to be problems like this on a public bus or in a hallway, or, it's like, that's what's happening. And so you are being given this message all the time that you have to be on high alert. You have to have your eyes open. You have to pay attention. If you don't, really bad things can happen. And I've had really bad things happen, unfortunately. Most of the time I've gotten away, and not all of the time have I gotten away. And that's just how it is. It's painful. And there are a lot of women like that. If you put 4 women in a room, probably one has not gotten away. So that's what we're dealing with. And when you put a man in office who's just very openly, blatantly, smugly bragged about treating women like objects that he could just do whatever he wants. Yeah, it's triggering. It's upsetting. It's disappointing. It's saddening. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, I want a much better world than that for my own daughter. Like, there are a lot of things there that are really hard to grapple with. And, like grappling with the fact that like so many white women voted for this. It's like, what, really? It's hard for me. It is. It's hard for me. So yeah, I didn't want to watch that happen on Monday. It's like, it's already happening. I did my best. Like, I wrote my heart out. I tried as hard as I could to speak to, I'm a white woman. I tried, you know what I mean? I tried to speak to my other white women as best I could. And a lot of them, I know, believe me, I know there are a lot of white women who like feel the same way I do. And there are a lot of white women who don't. And then there's just a lot of other, if you look at the actual numbers here, this was not a mandate, and that's a whole other conversation. A lot of people who didn't vote and just didn't vote at all. And a lot of people who weren't happy with, the options. And look, I'll be the first one to say, I think there's a lot of work to do as far as, really taking care of people in this country who are not being cared for. I think the Democratic Party needs to do a better job of like widening the net here and remembering like who were, what the working people are not, they're not feeling heard. And, when you have too many people who are not feeling heard and who are feeling, just uncared for, I guess this is what happens. And there are other things too. I mean, do I think this situation is going to be good for anyone anywhere? Absolutely not. I think everyone's going to suffer here. I really do. And that's what I eventually wanted to get to, and what I got to in the essay too, is that, what I think is getting a little bit lost for a lot of people is this person just brought in a whole bunch of billionaires with them. It's like 14 billionaires coming in with this administration. And I read Project 2025. I think I mentioned this at some point or another. I was on my way to Portugal and back. It was like 920 pages. And I read it because I didn't want to take anybody's word for it or just read like 2 pages here that somebody was sharing or 2 pages there. I just decided to like read this thing, which let me tell you, it's extremely dry. It was not fun reading, but it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And there's a reason that it's 920 pages. Nobody wants to read that, you know? But pretty much everything that you're seeing already is what it is. It's like, you know, all of these, like the government, you know, all of these things that are being shut down and the DEI hires and all of it, like all that stuff was like instant, no surprise. The veterans, like all these things that are now in jeopardy, it was like right there, just not a surprise. And yeah, they're already talking about term limits. I mean, this is all stuff that is not going to be good. It's just not, you know, it's not going to be good. And I do really worry. I do worry for a lot of people right now. And I know there's a lot of fear and anxiety. And I think that what I wanted to really get across and what was really, coming in, you know, meaningfully for me on Monday is what I don't want to do. And what I don't think any of us should do is play their game. And when I say their game, I am not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about billionaires who happen to be very much part of this administration. But, it's these people who they bought their way in. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them who it is in office. All they care about is they're getting the tax breaks and they're getting free reign to do whatever they want. And these are people who, you know, they want to take rockets to Mars and put the American flag on Mars. Like that's a thing. I'm not making it up. That's an actual thing, you know. This whole sort of like we're out of the Paris climate agreement again for the second time. I don't know if it's just because I'm here in California and California is literally like on fire, but the planet's on fire. You know, it's not just here. Hurricane, all the things that we're seeing, the hurricanes, the flooding, the fires, like it's all getting worse. And, you know, drill baby drill is not going to get us there. I was talking about how it's like, you know, it's like the same idea of like, I just want to like eat chocolate and French fries and like, I want to have hard liquor every night. I want to smoke cigarettes. And that's just like what I want to do because it's fun. You know, I just want to have some fun. And it's like, I don't know because I've never done that. Like I've never just said to myself, I'm going to eat chocolate and French fries all day and I'm going to chain smoke and I'm going to drink hard liquor at night and I'm going to do that day after day after day. I don't know, you know, I don't know from any sort of like lived experience, but maybe that would be fun for a little while. And then you probably start to feel really, really sick and then you drop dead. I mean, you know, that's what would happen. That's not sustainable. And that's what we're doing to the planet. You know, you can't just like run the AC all the time and like just all of it, like the carbon emissions and like you just can't, you know, cut down the forests and drill and just do all the things and then think there aren't going to be any repercussions and that the planet warming up a couple of degrees every year isn't going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. And we see that it's a problem. So, you know, I don't know. There's that. So, but the game is to keep us screaming at each other. That's the game. The game is to dominate the news cycle and get the liberals all upset. And then the liberals and the Republicans can scream at each other on the internet And then the billionaires can do whatever they want to do and not pay taxes. That's the game. I'm opting out. I'm not playing. I'm not playing. I don't harbor hate in my heart for anyone. I don't. It's too, it's a cancer. I'm not, it's just not what I'm doing. Like, I am going to spend my time and energy trying to figure out how to help people in my own community and trying to make the world around me look and feel the way I want the world around me to look and feel. And what I mean by that is like the things that I was talking about, right? Like right now, my particular community is in a lot of pain and a lot of trouble. So I'm just doing anything and everything I can to show up and try to help, to be there for people I know and people I don't know, to, volunteer, to like drive size 12 jeans to someone in Venice because that's what they need. If that's going to make their life just a teeny tiny little bit easier right now, I'm going. Like whatever small thing I can do, whatever big thing I can do, I'm going to drive my neighbor to the grocery store later because he needs a ride to the grocery store. Like, I kind of think this is how we save the world, is just small acts of kindness, one at a time. Each one of us doing whatever we can day by day. I do think we keep an eye on what is happening, but I am not immersing myself in this stuff. I'm not doom scrolling. I'm telling you, like, very much the only reason that, because it's all of these guys, okay? It's Jeffrey Bezos. Like, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Elon Musk, it's all of them. Okay. It's Peter Thiel. It's all these guys. They don't care about us. And I'm sorry, it's the president. He does not care about us. He has been wanting to be in the Billionaires Boys Club forever. I grew up in New York City. I know who this guy is. Okay. We all knew him. We've all known him for a long time. He thinks he's in with them fine. He's not. They're not. He's useful to them. He wants attention. Pay attention to me, me. Oh, this bishop was very rude. No, she wasn't. She just very calmly asked you to have some mercy on people. That's what a bishop does. It's like, he just, wants the attention. But do you think he does not care about you or me? They don't care about him. They don't care about us. So, did Elon Musk throw a Nazi salute? Yes. Like, don't waste your time with the gaslighting. Just don't do it. That's the game. The game is, how do we dominate the news cycle? How do we do something so reprehensible, so shocking, so disgusting that it takes over and everyone's screaming, I saw, yes, he did. No, he didn't. Libs, but like, just don't do that. Just don't engage. Don't do it. You know what you saw. You saw it with your own eyes. Just don't do that to yourself. Don't waste your energy on that. It's not worthwhile. It doesn't matter. You know what you saw. It's on brand. It is disgusting. It's awful. It's awful. And you don't have to doubt what you saw. You know what you saw. Don't get into that again. I feel like we all did that last time with the gaslighting and the somebody says something and then you're like, wait, what? And then I didn't say that. You're like, well, here's the tape. Yes, you did. Well, he was kidding. Like, just don't play that game. That's the game they want you to play. The reason that they want us screaming at each other is then we're paying attention to that. We're completely drained and there's nothing left in the tank to, fight the stuff that's really terrifying, and that really needs to be fought. I don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, if they really do try to change term limits, we all have some serious decisions to make. That's where the rubber hits the road. I don't know, but there's no point worrying about things until they come to pass, right? Like, you just robbing today of any potential peace or joy that you could find if you start spinning out, worrying about things that potentially could happen. Just try to stay in right now. What I'm doing, for whatever it's worth, take it or leave it. I am reading because I do want to know what's happening. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. I do not want to hear his voice. I really don't want to see his face. Like as little as possible is what I'm trying to do. I've built a whole community here. Obviously, I'm right now as I'm recording the podcast, I also have my practice page here with y'all on Facebook, and there's a giant fan page that I've built since 2009 that's got 174,000 people on it, and it's like, I don't know. I can't just like walk away from that. I certainly can't walk away from it quickly. So I'm trying to figure out like what I can do. And right now in Los Angeles, everyone is communicating with links on Instagram of like, hey, if you need meals, go here. Or if you want to donate to a really good vetted organization, here's one. Or, it's like, it's a tough time to just be like, all right, I'm out. So I'm trying to, figure that part out, but I really recommend you just get on and get off. Like if there's something that you need to do, you want to connect to your friends that are far away from you, and this is like one way that you do it. I understand, I get it. It's the life, it's the world that we're in right now. Go ahead, get on, but put a timer on, say hello to your high school friends or your elementary school friends or whatever it is, your friends from home, and then get off. And if you start doom scrolling or you're seeing things that you can feel your nervous system start to, like your shoulders are going up or you're not, get off. It's not good for you. And just get off of social media if that's happening for you. It's not worth it. You're not going to help anybody like that. And read like, try to read trustworthy, the Associated Press, or I've been like The Guardian, or BBC, like things that are not opinion ragey, like just try to understand what's happening and then go away from it and think about what's one action I can take. Can I call my representatives today? Is there something I can do that would be useful? Are there organizations I can support? Like maybe it's the ACLU or, like you can figure out for yourself, what are the organizations, the Equal Justice Initiative or, the NRDC, or like, what are the organizations that I want to, World Central Kitchen. I'm just throwing things out there, the places that I support and believe in. But, you can find these places for yourself or think about what's important to me and how do I support? What can I do? How do I help? And that's how we go. And that's how we do, and just try to stay calm, like do your best, get outside, get some fresh air and some sun on your face, see your friends in person, hug, like call people that you're far from, check on people that you're, if you think they're not okay, people who live alone, like just reach out and see what you can do to be a helper, and then ask for help when you need it, and stay focused, try to stay calm, don't play the game their way, don't do it. At a certain point, I understand, I know how upsetting it is, right, to feel like other people in this country have put you and people you love in jeopardy. Like you might feel that way, right? And it's understandable if you're feeling angry or what. I understand. The cost of eggs is not going down, okay? The cost of gas is not going down. The cost of hating each other, it goes up every day. And at a certain point, like, you got to opt out. The people who have supported this, I don't know what to say. I read the inauguration speech. I didn't listen. I read it. It was slogans. It was slogan after slogan after slogan. It's just slogans. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, but that's what it is. It's not substance, and it's not about anything that has to do with actual Americans who need help. So I don't know what to tell you, but I will say, try not to engage in that. Try not to play this game of like rage baiting and screaming on the internet. It's not useful. It doesn't help anybody. Just see what you can actually do in your community and, try to take care of your nervous system, stay engaged in the ways that matter, and like opt out of the rage and the hatred. Like, at a certain point, what I think, I don't know, is that the people who voted for this, and I don't, I don't wish pain on anybody. I don't not have it in me. But I think that everyone is going to suffer because of this administration. And so I think eventually those people are going to, want to come back to the fold here. I think we're going to have to work together at a certain point to try to fix things and start fighting the correct people, which are the people flying rockets up in the air here, okay? The people who can afford to build rockets are the people that we need to be fighting together before they burn the planet down. They don't care. They'll just go find another planet. They don't care about us. They'll burn this one out and they'll find another one. It's like, so that's my view on things. Please try to like do your yoga. If you do yoga, if you don't, find something that calms your nervous system, and reach out if you need help. All right. I'm sending you a lot of love. I know these are really, really hard times. You're not alone. There are a lot of people that are like hurting and scared, but also don't let this, don't let this mayhem and chaos and cruelty rob you of your joy and your hope. Don't give them that. Don't give them your power. Don't give them your time and your energy. Like, don't do that. I think what I didn't end up saying to you at the end is I have the best private client. I have one private client, and I adore him. He's like such a good person. And I think that's what I wanted to come back around to, is like, I just find it, so funny that I'm like pickier about my private clients than some people are about like who we're putting into these major positions of power, right? And if you just kind of like stay with reality, like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Let's just try to stay calm and like do the best that we can together, and remember that there are a lot of us, and the best thing that we can do is try to keep our hope and our joy intact. The cruelty, like the guy that fell on top of me in the bed, he enjoyed seeing my fear. He got off on it. Just don't give that to them. Just don't. Just don't do that. Keep your light, and protect that. Realize how valuable it is, and we will sustain. I believe in us. I still believe in us. I really do. I think it's going to be okay. I'll see you next time.